Hi OHS, how you feeling? Did you have a good lunch? Yeah, all right. We are the Jazz Studies class, second semester. We have some different peeps here from first semester to second semester, and some that are the same. So we have 6 tunes for you today of all different styles. The first one we're going to play is called Good Times. That's a straight ahead swing tune. Then we've got a funk tune for you. We've got a ballad, a rock ballad. Then we've got another like up-tempo jazz tune, and then we've got a jazz standard that you'll most likely recognize. That's a little bit slower, but it packs a punch. And then our last tune is a New Orleans early brass band tune, which is Barn Burner. So we hope you enjoy. I'm Mrs. Yeager. I teach all the bands, jazz and percussion here at OHS. And please give a warm welcome to our Jazz Studies class. So you probably noticed that I prompted you to clap for the soloists right after they solo. So that's okay to do in jazz. So just make sure that you clap nice and loud for those friends. And then I'll just real quick recap who went and ask for a little bit more applause. So we had Carson out on vibes, and we had Abby Sargent on the clarinet. Give it up. Our next tune is a funk tune called Buffalo Head, and we have 2 more featured soloists on this chart as well. So you probably noticed that there are people that have been switching instruments. Have you noticed that at all?
Yes.
How many of you play something in jazz that is not your primary instrument, whether you like switch instruments in between songs or you're playing a completely different instrument that you learned just for jazz? Raise your hand. Raise them up high. Look at this. So all these people are playing a secondary instrument in addition to studying their primary instrument here at OHS. Can you give it up for that? We like to spread the love around. And then we had Carson not on piano as our soloist for that one, so give it up for Carson. All right, so we just finished our rock ballad, so we are on to Riverette as our next tune here. This one you might recognize. A lot of people have heard it made more popular recently in pop culture by Michael Bublé. It's called Feeling Good. But it's been covered by Nina Simone and many, many prominent artists. This one doesn't have any like featured soloists that are like super obvious to the band, except for one trumpet soloist that gets to happen twice. So with this one, don't clap in the middle of the piece. We'll acknowledge that person at the end. Does that sound good? Okay, awesome. Again, I think you're gonna, even if you're not sure if you've ever heard Feeling Good before, I think you're gonna recognize it. It's been used in a lot of commercials too. But Michael Bublé didn't write it. Rick Stitzel wrote it. Okay. All right, so we had 2 soloists on that piece. We had Emmett Marson on trumpet, and actually, Jacob, I wasn't even thinking about it because it's so lead, but we only have 1 trombone player, so Jacob Warden on the trombone, and Emmett Marson on the trumpet, everybody. Okay, so how many of you recognize that tune? Yeah, right? Like, totally. I knew that most of you were probably going to be able to understand it just by hearing it, even if you weren't sure before. And I'm sorry, even I misspoke when I was like, Michael Blade didn't write it. Rich Stitzel's the arranger. Anthony Newley and Leslie Brighus were the ones that wrote it. So, but like I said, made popular most recently by Michael Bublé. So, okay, we have until, what time does this class end? 21, that's what I thought. So we're real close. We might end a couple minutes early, but first of all, do you have any questions for us about jazz things or the instruments that are being played on this stage? Or any of the tunes that you've heard so far? Go ahead, Zeke.
Are most of the solos written out, or do you guys kind of figure them out, or what?
What a great question. Zeke's question, who wants to field this one? Zeke said, are most of the solos written out, or are we improvising them? Would you like to field that one, Elliot?
Sure. So most of the solos are improvised. We get a chord progression and a scale, and we kind of get to look around in the moment and try to produce a melody that sounds good based on that. Some of them are written out, like on Feeling Good. The trumpet and the trombone are all written out, but for the most part, the solos are improvised.
Thanks, Elliot. All right, so, and I just want to make super clear, when you think about improv and you think about what it means to improvise something, a lot of people who maybe don't have that much experience with music think that it's like that you quote unquote make it up on the spot. Does that sound familiar? Yes, no? Okay, so what I want to just make clear is what Elliot's saying is that there is a certain chord structure or a scale that you have to use in order to make it fit with the rest of what the musicians are doing. So improvisation is a craft. It's an art. We're not just making it up on the spot. We have to know, intensely know, in our own musical brains already what those chord structures are, what that scale is, and how we want to use those notes to make them fit in before we can even make those improvisation choices. So when you go to places that you're listening to live music and there are people that are doing improvised solos, just know they're not just making it up. It comes from like a super deep study and understanding of how the music all has to fit together and what note choice has to go with that. So just want to make that clear. Other questions? Thank you, Zeke. That was a deep one. Love it. Yes.
Do you work on improvisation? Yeah, improvisation. I can't speak today. Improv during class and like practice that and like work on it, like and have like practice sessions with that.
Do we work on improvisation in class, jazz band?
Yes!
Yes, we do. You got it. Yeah, we work on it almost every day. Yeah, almost every day. And we usually start with, like if somebody signs up for jazz studies at the beginning of the school year, like we usually jump into like a blues, 12-bar blues form. We learn a blues scale, we learn the 12-bar blues progression, we learn it in multiple keys, and how to improvise over those chord changes, which the next piece actually is a 12-bar blues form in concert B flat. So this piece, we absolutely learned by rote without reading any music, start to finish. So everything that you hear, we learned by ear and by understanding the concert B flat scale, the blues scale, and how that 12-bar blues progression runs in B flat. So everything, they're not gonna look at any music right now for this last tune. Okay, anybody ever been to New Orleans? You ever seen the Second Line Parade by chance? Yeah, okay, a couple of you, cool. So this one is pretty rowdy. Our last tune is rowdy and fun, and it's got lots of solos on it. So cheer super, super loud. We're gonna cheer for ourselves too. That might seem kind of narcissistic, but it's meant to be a giant party on stage, okay? New Orleans second line parades have a long storied history in their culture, especially in certain districts in New Orleans, where they would have somebody would start the parade by calling out on the trumpet. You're going to hear that, and people would hear that trumpet call or that trombone call, and they'd come out of their house, they'd grab whatever instrument they got, and they'd join the parade. It could be for a wedding, could be for a funeral, could be some other sort of celebration, or even a protest march. But they use these second line parades in New Orleans for all sorts of celebrations, and they're so ingrained in the culture that they're protected by law. So even if you moved to New Orleans and you were like, bruh, that's too loud, I'm trying to like sleep or something, you couldn't call the cops because they're protected by law as part of the culture, which I think is pretty cool, that music is part of their heart and their soul and their culture. So we got second line. Yeah! Ready? All right. Let's do this.